Greetings and welcome. This is your friendly electric shmoo bringing you an update to URLium. URLium is a mod for Fabric Minecraft 1.20.1 and 1.20.2 that allows you to send in-game information from some user-accessible items and blocks and commands to an external web service that you can then decide how to respond back to the game using Archon, effectively working like a customizable, web accessible command block. So we're going to go through the documentation and just see exactly what some of these items do and how to use them. We'll go through a separate video of an example of actual implementation and see a sample sort of Minecraft mod in PHP. So let's start with let's start with the post wand. The post wand can be given to any user with the give command, and this is effectively a reporting tool. You just use it on a block or an entity, and it will give you your standard XYZ and device information and more details depending on if it's a block or an entity. So you can mark and tag things. Let's say you want to mark the corners of a claim, or if you need to tag a particular entity. This is a general purpose tool that allows you to simply give a user the way to report where they are or what they're tagging. And so that's the post wand. The config wand is something that works on a certain set of elements. So we can work on signs, hanging signs, chests, trap chests, barrels, comparators, hoppers, skulk sensors, light sensors, lecterns, mobs, and entities. And what we do when we right click on them is we enable change reporting. So if you enable change reporting on one of these elements, anytime its NBT stack has been modified, so if its inventory has changed or if the comparator's redstone value has changed, it's going to report that change with the location and the particular device type to your web service. Some in real time, some only when elements are saved in NBT. So chests are not chests and containers do not respond as quickly as things like comparators or skulk sensors, but they all respond in a reasonable number of seconds. So we would be able to respond to the change of an inventory in a chest. We can respond to redstone signals changing through a comparator or the daylight signal. You can read the contents of a lectern book whenever it is changed, and you can read the text off of signs and hanging signs. And so all of this information can be responded to uh, and triggered in a way as an external command block element. We also have the post block, which is a somewhat intentionally ugly texture, so you can decide what you want to retexture it as. But it is functionally a button. It is simply a block that acts like the post wand in reverse. You walk up to it and you right click use it, and that simply reports a use event. And it's also capable of detecting redstone power sensing, but you're best using a comparator for that. I would recommend avoiding needing the post block for redstone sensing. It detects every intermediate step, or maybe not every intermediate step, but if the power drops off, it's going to detect 14, 13, 8, 4, 0. So you want to just use a comparator if you really need your redstone information. But if you need just a general button for a user to walk up to and right click, then this is a perfectly usable thing. It does nothing but report its location, the time, the user, XYZ position, and the redstone power. The get block command and the set block command are effectively remote improvements on the built-in get block and set block commands. If you're using Archon and you need to respond back to the game and you use get block commands, each one of those is going to echo out a message to all of the op users, um, and echo as a Archon message. So if you want to avoid that, you can just simply use the use set block and you get block commands, and it will not echo messages out. Um, it is important that you set your level to 2 or higher. That is relative to the user permissions level. We'll look at that further in the settings. You can disable the commands completely just by setting in the properties -1 for the level for that command. And again, set block allows you to set the contents and inventory of an item, so you can simply plop a chest with whatever inventory you want, and it will not report to op users. So use it with caution. Again, this is specifically to be able to respond back to the game from your external Archon service. And so now down here we have the webcom commands. There's up to 3 commands that you can give users, and you can decide what the actual name of the command is. In the config settings, message and message 2 and message 3 are simply the aliases, and you can change these to whatever else you want. But these are going to be messages that are sent to the web service, and again, you can decide how you want this particular feature to be used from your web server. This is the permission level, again, -1 to disable for all users. Be considerate of what powers you give. Even though these may be trusted users, I would simply restrict and filter things and treat them as suspicious information. So here we have the installation. These are the current dependencies: 0.5.18 for 0.16 or 0.6.2 for .2. So make sure you download the correct version of Polymer. And the Polymer library makes this a server-side only mod, so that these 3 blocks, the config one, the post one, and the post block, are only server-side. The only thing that it generates is a resource pack file, and you handle your resource pack file as you would if you were merging any others together. You run the generate pack command, and that will create the file. Set that in your config settings. Make your SHA-1 hash for security sake, and it's pretty straightforward to get it installed. To get the actual blocks and items, this is intentionally not included in any menus. I didn't want to complicate the client side in any way. It's simply a give command, and there's a block and a post wand item and a config wand item. So just give those items to a user, and that user doesn't need any special permissions to use those 3 devices. You get to decide as an admin whether or not you respond to the post block and the post wand's behavior. The config wand is going to change reporting no matter what. So just be aware. There may be a permission setting in the future to allow or disallow a specific user from using the config wand, but as of now, once they get it, they can turn a chest or hopper or lectern into a reporting block. And this can be reversed simply by unselecting that property. So just test once you've installed to make sure that your web request goes out to somewhere, and your web server, whatever it is actually going to, is going to be set in the target URL in your config file. So under config URLium.properties, we're going to have the full URL that we're going to be sending our messages to. This is the agent. This is the user agent. Normally this would be something like Mozilla or Chrome or whatever. So here we can just set whatever name we want to set for security purposes. And there's also a secret token, which is not particularly encrypted unless you're using HTTPS. So be aware of this authentication bearer header uh, is available for you to use if you want to make sure that your request is coming from this server. Um, the message commands are set here, so if you want to rename what the user types in, we can do that in the config file here. These are the permissions for those messages and the permissions for those two commands, and these are the default values. Actually, no, I take that back. These are not the default values. These are just some sample values. Take note of these settings. -1 is disabled, 0 is for all users, and then appropriate level for higher authentication. Here's some sample output to tell you what it has read in your logs. So if you want to make sure that it is reading your config file correctly, the only thing it doesn't display is your security token. For logging reasons, I don't think you should really be showing it, but I may put that back in there in the future. That used to be displayed. So here's some sample properties that get sent on reporting entities. So if you have right-clicked on a mob, and now you as any user walk up to that mob and you right-click it, that is an interaction. And so this entity will report the ID, type, the name, and the method. We have chest, we have barrels, hoppers, lecterns, signs. You'll see the front and the back is a separate set of lists. The generated data in Minecraft is not exactly JSON friendly, so there is some parsing here, but not a lot. It will be up to you in your web service to parse and read some of this information. It's not that badly formatted, but it is not strict JSON. Some of the information, especially in the state sort of NBT properties, can be, I believe it's JSON. And so here are some possible uses. We can make our response in a different language. So we don't actually need to work with Java. We don't need to reboot. If I'm going to be demonstrating a PHP backend script, I never need to restart PHP to edit that PHP. So you could do live real-time mod editing with this type of environment. In addition, because it's a web interface, it could go out and deal with the real world, like Raspberry Pi, email, SMS, text messages, web interfaces, whatever. And we've now completed the circle, so things that go into the game can now also come out of the game, like players walking through doors, setting off traps, skulk sensors being deployed, any other in-game information. And so this means that you could connect to completely disconnected servers and allow them to transmit redstone signals between each other. So you could press a button on one server and use that to open a door in the other one, and use comparators or switches or even commands and such to do those sorts of things. You could have a treasure hunt where there's a chest with change reporting enabled, and you could have a post wand that the users have to walk around and tag a certain number of items or blocks, or collect a certain number of items and blocks, and you can see exactly who wins and fills their chest first. You could have a quiz show in which there are multiple contestant lecterns that have change reporting enabled, and each player uses a quill and book to submit their answers, and there could be a game host that has the actual correct answer, and the web service could decide and compare which contestants got the right answer, or display the answer back on chests or back in the game using signs, or reward users in their chests, or trigger things with other game mechanics. And you could have chat messages from commands to signs across servers, I would recommend always having an application server to application server. So this would be a PHP to PHP connection, and then maintain an inside local network connection just to reduce the amount of external communication to your Minecraft server. But then we come up to the kind of weird things that you could do. Let's say ChatGPT, get player position, um, respond with commands. You could ask ChatGPT, please build me a bridge across this ravine. And it could query your location and generate a number of commands to build you a bridge across a ravine. You could even have a portal and chest that transmits blocks between each other, or between different servers. So when the item goes into one, it's transmitted and saved in the other. All of these options, all of these ideas are things that you can customize, and I will be displaying a PHP demo of a few uses. Um, and so that's an overview of what URLium itself does. What you do with it, what extra features you add, that's up to you. So I hope this has been a long-winded but uh, a pretty thorough demonstration of the documentation, and we'll look at an actual demo in the next video. I'll see you there. Thank you.